What about those girls over there? They're hot.
They're not hot.
Are you kidding? I hated their guts the second I saw them, which means they're hot.
Barney, they're hot.
Oh, there is so much to teach you all. You have just become victims of the cheerleader effect. Glad you asked. The cheerleader effect is when a group of women seems hot, but only as a group. Take a good hard look at each one of those girls, individually.
I don't know. The one on the end is kind of cute.
So as it turns out, Barney Stinson was a bit of a psychologist, because even with all of his weird theories, rules, and the bro code, the cheerleader effect actually exists. And what's more interesting is that he actually coined that term before it was ever academically researched, like properly. What is a cheerleader effect? Well, like you saw in that clip, it's when you appear more attractive because you are in a group versus when you are looked at individually. Now, obviously, a scene from a show is not really the most scientific, but there is some truth to that, and that's what we're going to get into today. So you might be thinking, no duh, of course you would look more attractive in a group because you look more social, more friendly, likable. You know, you have friends around you, people also see how you interact with them, and that can show your personality, make you more attractive. And while there is definitely some truth to that, it actually boils down to more of how the brain processes visual information when it comes to perception. So when our brain sees a whole bunch of visual information, instead of spending time to pay attention to each individual element, it actually summarizes that information as a group. This was actually seen to be as an evolutionary advantage because we're able to improve our survival rates by reducing perceptual load. Perceptual load being the burden of processing visual information. So what this means is that when you see a group of people, you're not assessing them all individually. They all sort of have an effect on each other. To show this with a popular example, if we look at this Ebbinghaus illusion, so I'm going to show both these images here. So as you can tell, one image is smaller than the other, right? Now what you might not notice is the middle circle of both these images is exactly the same size. Are you surprised? I was. And that's because the surrounding circles got smaller, and so we perceive the entire thing as, first of all, we see it as probably an image together, and that's a whole other perception thing that we could talk about. But because they're all close in proximity and it appears as if it's one image, you probably see it as two flowers, right? And one is smaller than the other. But because the surrounding circles have now become smaller, we think that the entire group of elements has become smaller, when actually the middle circle is still the same size. And this is sort of what occurs with the cheerleader effect. The group impacts how you view the individual. So now, okay, you might be thinking, well, if we use that same example, then having a group of unattractive friends would then make you seem unattractive as well, because the group affects the person. Does that only occur when you have attractive friends? Do I have to go out there and get myself the most good-looking supermodel friends so that I can be associated with them? And no, that's not exactly how it works. In fact, if you take a group of images that are identical of the same person, it would be rated lower in attractiveness than if you showed that one person with two other images of less attractive or averagely attractive people. And so this takes us to the first theory of what is going on in your brain when you're viewing a group of individuals. When our brain sees a group of people, whether it's males, females, a mixed group, it will create an average based on those faces. One thing that we actually know from previous research is that humans like average faces. What does that mean? If you were to take, let's say, 6 images of 6 different people and then create a composite image, which is, I hope I'm pronouncing composite right, which is a combination of all those images together, like a little, you know, those apps that you can create a baby with you and your partner or something. That's what they do. Like they put it all together and create a new face. If you were to ask people which of now 7 images is the most attractive, they would most usually pick the composite image because that is the average of all the faces. We like averages, apparently. And this kind of makes sense because sometimes you see people who say like, oh, this person is attractive, but they're too attractive that it's like unattractive. You know what I mean? And that's what's suggested to happen in a group setting. You see this group of friends, your brain makes an average of those faces, and then each individual now is closer to that average, and so you see them as attractive. The other thing that could be happening, and it might be happening together with that averages thing, when you have a group of people in front of you and all this visual information compared to just staring at one person on their own, you don't have as much attention to spend on each person to really like nitpick on them and see their unattractive qualities. And so you only really have time to see the good stuff and not really pick on the bad stuff. And that's why you would appear more attractive in a group than when you're viewed on your own. Think of yourself when you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you can focus on each and every like spot and I don't know, wrinkle or whatever. That's the same thing. Now please don't be afraid to actually spend time with people one-on-one just because of that. We know that in the end we are harsher critics of ourselves than people are of us. A lot of people say they don't notice my little bunny buck teeth going on, even though to me it's the most obvious thing. So don't let that stop you from socializing with a different amount of people every time. And speaking of that, the size of the group does not actually influence the strength of the cheerleader effect. You just need to be in a group, 4 people or more, and you're good to go. Having more people does not mean that you're gonna look more attractive. So for those with social anxiety, you don't have to be too much of a social person. The third theory about this is how we have selective attention. And so when viewing a group, we will actually pay more attention to the more attractive members of the group, and our evaluation of those attractive members will influence how we view the rest of the group. Basically, if you've got a group of people, 2 of them are really good looking and the other 3 are average or like not so much, the 2 good looking people, your judgment of them will influence how you judge the rest of the group, and so you will see them all as being, I guess, relatively attractive or more attractive than they really are. So now, the good stuff, using this to your advantage. Obviously, number 1, if you're gonna go on a night out, don't go alone and be a creepy little person. Take a group of friends with you, because then you won't be alone, and 2, you're going to seem probably more attractive than you really are. 2, when you're picking a profile picture for your Facebook, your WhatsApp, whatever social media, use one that's a group photo. Number 3, when you're setting up your online dating profile, use some group photos in there. Of course, make sure to mark who you are so that nobody gets annoyed because they don't know which one of your 10 friends in that photo is meant to be you. And that should work great for you. Alright, so that's the end of that video. I've got the resources and studies linked below for anyone who really wants to dive deep into this, because I did find out a lot while looking into this, but I don't want to make this too much of a long video. But if you want to research more, here you go. I'll see you in the next video.